The grand palace of the Star Emperor shimmered under the light of twin suns. Its golden towers reached into the sky like blades, shining over a city of alien wonders. But inside those walls, silence ruled. Servants whispered, guards avoided the main hall, and nobles spoke only in fear. The reason was the Emperor's 3 daughters, when once known as the Pearls of the Galaxy, now called the Cursed Ones. Long ago, the Emperor had refused a marriage proposal from a dark sorcerer from the outer stars. The sorcerer swore revenge and cast a curse upon the royal bloodline. That night, the Emperor's daughters screamed in pain as their beauty twisted into something monstrous. Their skin turned pale gray, their eyes glowed with strange fire, and their voices echoed like broken glass. From that day, no suitor dared to look upon them. For years, the Emperor tried to find a cure. He offered gold, planets, and power, but no one succeeded. Every healer failed, every priest fled. The curse became a symbol of shame, and the empire slowly began to lose faith in its ruler. Then one stormy night, the silence of the empire broke. A small human cargo ship entered the restricted space above the Emperor's moon. The ship was damaged, its engines failing. Aboard it was Captain Elias Ward, a traitor from Earth. He didn't know this sector belonged to the Emperor. All he wanted was a place to land before his ship exploded. His ship crashed on the icy surface of the Emperor's private moon. The Imperial Guard surrounded the wreck, dragging him out of the smoke. He was bleeding, his suit torn, but his eyes were calm. When the guards aimed their plasma spears, he simply raised his hands and said, "I mean no harm." They brought him to the palace in chains. When the doors opened, Elias looked around in awe. The throne hall was filled with alien nobles, tall, horned beings with silver skin and golden eyes. At the far end, on a throne of crystal, sat the Star Emperor, his presence heavy like gravity itself. The Emperor spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Human," he said, "you have trespassed into forbidden space. Do you know the punishment for that?" Elias bowed his head. "No, Your Majesty. But I didn't come here by choice. My ship is broken. I only sought to survive," the nobles laughed. "A fragile Earthman dares to speak before the Emperor," one hissed. "Throw him into the mines." But before the guards could move, a soft voice echoed across the hall, trembling, strange, and hollow. "Father, wait." All eyes turned. From the shadows at the edge of the throne, 3 cloaked figures stepped forward, the Emperor's daughters. Their hoods hid their faces, but even through the fabric, their alien features shimmered strangely. The nobles bowed in silence. No one dared look directly at them. The youngest daughter spoke again. He looked at us." The hall froze. The Emperor frowned. "What did you say?" "He looked at us," she repeated softly. "And he did not scream." Elias blinked, confused. "Why would I scream?" The second daughter raised her hood. Her face was pale, scarred, and inhuman, yet her eyes carried sadness, not evil. "Everyone screams when they see us," she whispered. Elias stared for a moment. He saw not monsters, but pain. "I've seen worse," he said quietly. "War on Earth showed me what true monsters look like." The hall fell silent again. Even the Emperor's breath slowed. No one had ever spoken to his daughters like that. The eldest daughter stepped closer. "You pity us?" Elias shook his head. "No, I understand you." The nobles began to murmur. "Blasphemy," one hissed. "He mocks the royal bloodline." But the Emperor raised a hand. His eyes studied Elias with new interest. "You are either a fool or a brave man, human." "Perhaps both," he leaned forward. "Tell me your name." "Captain Elias Ward," he answered. "Pilot of the Sol Runner from Earth." The Emperor's expression darkened, but his tone softened. "Earth, I have heard of your kind. Small world, big spirit," he stood. "You will not die today, Captain Ward. You will stay as my guest until I decide your fate." Gasps filled the chamber. No outsider had ever been offered mercy in the Emperor's hall. As guards led Elias away, the 3 daughters watched him. For the first time in years, they felt something stir inside them. Hope. That night, whispers spread through the palace. The human who did not fear the cursed princesses. Who is he? Why did the Emperor spare him? In the royal garden, the youngest daughter looked up at the twin moons and whispered to her sisters, "Maybe he is the one the prophecy spoke of." The middle one frowned. "The prophecy?" "The one the priests hid," she said. "It said, when a heart of iron shows no fear, the curse shall begin to break." Far away in the dark cell given to him, Elias sat on a stone bench, staring at the stars through the bars. "What have I walked into?" he muttered to himself. Little did he know. His arrival had already changed the destiny of an empire. The next morning, Captain Elias Ward woke up in a silver-walled room that didn't look like a prison at all. The air smelled of rare flowers, and the bed under him was softer than anything he had ever slept on. Through the open window, he could see the twin suns rising over the crystal city. He sat up slowly. His wounds had been cleaned, his uniform folded neatly beside the bed. Strange, he thought. They treat me like a guest, after dragging me in chains. Before he could think further, the door slid open with a soft hum. A tall alien guard entered, his armor glowing with blue light. "Captain Ward," the guard said with a metallic voice. "The royal daughters wish to see you. You will come." Elias followed the guard through long, glowing corridors filled with murals and floating lights. Every alien they passed stopped to stare. Whispers followed him. The human who looked at the cursed ones into the fearless one. The prophecy's echo. He had no idea what they meant, but he could feel the tension in the air. Finally, the guard stopped before a tall silver gate. "Do not speak unless spoken to," he warned, and then the doors opened. Inside was a massive garden made of living crystal. Strange flowers glowed in soft colors and the air shimmered with energy. 3 figures stood near a pool of liquid light, the daughters of the Star Emperor. This time, their hoods were down. Their faces were still half changed by the curse. Gray skin, glowing veins, and strange marks across their eyes. But Elias saw sadness in them more than horror. The eldest daughter stepped forward. "You are brave, human," she said softly. "Or foolish. Most run from us." Elias smiled slightly. "Fear wastes energy," he said, "and I've been tired for a long time." The second daughter tilted her head. "Tired from what?" "From wars," he said simply. "From watching people die and calling it victory." The 3 sisters looked at one another. None of their alien knights had ever spoken like that. The youngest stepped closer, curiosity shining in her glowing eyes. "On your world, humans fight for survival?" Elias nodded. "We fight, but we also rebuild. We help each other. That's what keeps us human." The eldest princess whispered to her sisters. That is why he did not scream. They invited him to sit by the pool. Servants brought a tray of glowing fruits and silver cups of liquid. Elias hesitated. "Poison," he joked lightly. The youngest laughed, a sharp, echoing sound that startled even her sisters. She covered her mouth quickly. "No," she said, smiling through her gray skin. "It's nectar. We haven't laughed in years." Something inside Elias softened. Then maybe this place needs more laughter. For the first time in a decade, the 3 cursed daughters laughed together. Soft, broken, but real. The garden lights flickered brighter as if responding to their joy. Unseen behind the crystal trees, the Star Emperor watched. His advisors whispered nervously. "Your Majesty, this human. He breaks the silence around your daughters. He is dangerous." The Emperor's eyes were thoughtful. "Dangerous?" "No, alive, and life is what this palace has forgotten." He turned away. "Let him stay." Days passed. Elias was allowed to walk freely in the gardens, always under guard, but no longer treated as a prisoner. The princesses often joined him, curious about Earth. He told them stories, of rain that fell like silver, of oceans that roared like beasts, of people who sang even when hungry. The youngest listened with shining eyes. "Your world sounds free," she whispered. "It was," Elias said quietly, "until we started fighting over it." That night, the 3 sisters gathered in their moonlit chamber. "He speaks like the old poets," said the eldest. "His words, heal." The middle sister traced a hand over the mirror, watching her cursed reflection. "When he speaks, my heart feels warm." "The curse fades for a moment," the youngest whispered. "The prophecy. It's real," the eldest frowned. "Don't say that aloud. Father forbade it. But it said, when one without fear gives his heart freely, the curse shall begin to die." Their eyes met. Could it be this human? Meanwhile, Elias sat alone in his quarters, looking at the alien stars. He felt something pulling him toward those girls, not attraction, but empathy. They're trapped in beauty, twisted by pain, he thought. And maybe I'm the fool who walked into their prison. The next morning, the royal court gathered again. The Senate was furious. "The human corrupts the royal bloodline with his words. shouted one noble. "He should be executed." The emperor listened silently, fingers tapping the throne. Finally he said, "If this human brings laughter to my daughters, then let him live." Gasps echoed through the hall, but the emperor's eyes darkened as he added, "If he brings them tears, I will see his blood on my floor." That night, the youngest daughter visited Elias secretly. She wore a silver cloak that hid her face. "You shouldn't be here," Elias said quietly. "I had to see you," she whispered. "When you spoke today, I felt something inside me." The curse hurt less. He looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe because you smiled." She smiled again softly. Her face shimmered with faint light, the gray fading for a heartbeat before returning. She gasped. "Did you see that?" Elias nodded. "Yeah, maybe hope is stronger than magic." From the shadows, something ancient stirred. A soft hum beneath the palace floor, like the universe itself had started listening. The next dawn, rumors swept through the empire. The cursed princess laughed. Her scars glowed with life. The human touched their hearts. And deep inside the emperor's chamber, an old priest whispered to his master, "Sire, if the prophecy is true, your daughter's fates, and the fate of the empire, now rest in human hands." The emperor turned toward the rising suns. "Then may the stars forgive us all." The palace had changed. What was once cold and silent now felt alive. The courtyards echoed with faint laughter. The servants walked without fear, and even the air shimmered with warmth that hadn't been there for years. The reason was clear: the human. Captain Elias Ward, a simple man from Earth, had unknowingly become the heart of the emperor's palace. Every morning he met the princesses in the crystal gardens. They spoke, they shared stories, and they learned from each other. The alien world began to feel a little less alien. The emperor allowed it, for now. But the Senate watched with growing suspicion. One evening, as twin moons rose, Elias sat beneath the ancient star tree with the youngest princess, Liara. The glowing leaves reflected on her gray skin, making her look ethereal. "Your people," she asked softly, "do they also fear those who are different?" Elias thought for a while. "Sometimes," he said honestly. "Humans fear what they don't understand. But sometimes we learn to love what we once feared." Liara tilted her head. "And what do you see when you look at us?" He smiled faintly. "I see 3 women trapped by something cruel. And I see light trying to break through the cracks." Her heart fluttered, a strange feeling she couldn't name. "No one ever said that to me," she whispered. He shrugged lightly. "Maybe no one ever looked close enough." In the following days, the princesses grew closer to him. The eldest, Seren, began to walk without her hood. The middle one, Caliph, laughed again even when nobles glared. Slowly the curse seemed to weaken, but power in the empire came with rules. And one rule was clear: no human may touch royal blood. Whispers reached the Senate. The daughters are changing. The curse fades. But the price may be treason. One night the emperor summoned his high priest, a creature older than the stars. "Tell me," the emperor said, "what is happening to my daughters?" The priest's eyes glowed like molten silver. "The prophecy, my emperor. It speaks of a heart that fears nothing, a mortal soul who gives warmth where gods could not. The curse weakens because love is forming in a forbidden bond." The emperor's face turned pale. "Love between my daughters and that human?" The priest nodded slowly. "If the bond completes, the curse will vanish, but their hearts will belong to him forever." The emperor clenched his fists. "Then I must end it before it's too late." The next morning, Elias found the gardens empty. Guards told him the princesses were busy. Days passed, and he wasn't allowed near them. His meals were brought to his chamber, his freedom quietly taken away, but he didn't give up. He waited until midnight when the palace slept and slipped past the guards. He followed the soft hum of voices until he reached a hidden chamber behind the throne room. There he saw them, all 3 princesses kneeling before their father. The emperor's voice was cold. "You are royal blood. You were born to lead the empire, not to shame it." Seren's voice trembled. "Father, he brought life back to us. We only wish to thank him," Caliph added. "He does not seek power, only peace." Liara's eyes shone with tears. "We are not ashamed, Father. For the first time we feel alive." The emperor slammed his staff. "Enough. The curse may fade, but honor will not be broken. The human leaves tomorrow, or dies." Elias stepped out of the shadows. "Then kill me now, your majesty," he said calmly. Because I'm not leaving without saying goodbye. Guards drew their weapons instantly. The princesses screamed. The emperor's eyes burned like fire. You dare? Elias looked straight at him. I've seen tyrants on earth who ruled by fear. You're not one of them. You're a father who's afraid to lose his daughters, but locking them away isn't love and it's another curse. The hall went silent. Even the guards hesitated. The emperor slowly lowered his staff. His voice softened, but his face remained unreadable. You speak boldly for a man who has no power. Elias smiled sadly. Maybe courage is the only power I've ever had. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the emperor turned away. Take him to the western tower. He will stay there until I decide his fate. The guards dragged Elias away. Liara tried to run after him, but her father stopped her. If you follow him, the emperor warned, you will never see the sunrise in this palace again. Tears rolled down her gray cheeks as Elias was taken into the dark corridors. That night, in the tower cell, Elias stared out the window. The twin moons cast silver light on the floor. He could hear the faint hum of the palace, the whisper of the wind, and then a soft knock. The door creaked open. Liara stepped inside, her cloak glowing faintly. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. I don't care, she said. Her voice broke. My father won't listen. The Senate fears you. They want to destroy you before dawn. Elias sighed. Figures. I never make good first impressions. Liara stepped closer. If you die, the curse will never break. You must live, Elias, for us. He looked at her, his heart heavy. Then come with me, her eyes widened. Leave the Empire? Freedom is worth the risk. Before she could answer, alarms rang through the palace. Guards shouted from below. The Emperor's voice echoed through the halls. Find them. The human has defied my rule. Elias grabbed her hand. No more cages, he said, and together under the moonlight, the human and the cursed princess ran, not knowing their escape would ignite the fury of the entire empire. The twin moons hung low over the capital of the Galactic Empire, their glow turning crimson as the great eclipse began. Once every century, both moons crossed paths, casting the entire world into a strange, silent darkness. The people believed it was a night of fate, when destinies could be rewritten and curses could awaken. That night, Elias Ward and Princess Liara ran through the endless corridors of the Star Palace. Alarm bells echoed behind them. Guards shouted orders, plasma lights flared, and the heavy sound of boots followed. But Elias didn't stop. His only thought was freedom, hers and his own. Liara's breath came fast. We can't run forever, she whispered as they reached a high balcony overlooking the shining city below. My father's men will never stop. Elias scanned the horizon. Airships filled the sky, searchlights cutting through the darkness. Then we'll go where they can't follow, he said. He took her hand. Trust me. For a moment she hesitated, but the warmth in his touch silenced her fear. They climbed onto a maintenance skimmer parked nearby. Elias pressed random buttons until it hummed to life. The guards burst through the doors just as the skimmer lifted off. Stop them, shouted the captain of the guard. Bolts of blue plasma flew past them as the craft shot into the sky. The wind whipped through Liara's cloak, revealing her gray, shimmering skin to the world below. The city stared, thousands of eyes watching the cursed princess fleeing with a human. The Senate chambers roared with chaos. The prophecy, one elder shouted. The bond is complete. The curse will end, and so will our rule. In his throne room, the Star Emperor stood before the great window, watching the eclipse swallow the light. His voice trembled with rage and sorrow. She was my light, he whispered. Now she runs into darkness with a man of earth. Behind him the high priest knelt. The universe tests all fathers, Majesty. The curse cannot be stopped now. The prophecy says, when love defies the crown, stars will bleed and a new age will rise. The Emperor turned sharply. Then let the stars bleed. Send the fleet. Bring me my daughter. Meanwhile, Elias guided the skimmer into the mountain clouds. The engine sputtered. It wasn't meant to fly this high. We'll need to land soon, he said. Liara looked back. The city glowed faintly below, but lights were rising. Dozens of pursuit ships. They're coming, she said, fear breaking through her calm. Elias frowned. Then we go where they won't. He pointed toward the dark storm swirling above the mountains. The shattered rift, a forbidden zone filled with magnetic storms and old debris from past wars. No ship dared enter. Liara's eyes widened. That place kills everything that enters. Then they won't follow, he said simply. The skimmer dove into the storm. Lightning tore the sky apart. Wind screamed through the hull. Liara gripped the controls with him, her eyes glowing faintly, a soft light pulsing from her veins. Elias, look. The storm's lightning curved away from her, as if avoiding her presence. The curse that once made her feared now shielded them. They broke through the clouds and landed in a valley of silver dust and black stone. The air was thin, silent, almost sacred. For a moment they stood in peace. The eclipse's shadow covered the valley in red light. Liara turned to him, her voice trembling. You risked your life for me, he smiled faintly. Guess I'm not very smart. She stepped closer, eyes shimmering. No, you're brave, he shook his head. No, I'm just human. We make mistakes, but we don't run from what's right. She looked at him for a long time, and something inside her heart shifted, a warmth that broke through centuries of darkness. Then suddenly the ground trembled. From the cliffs above, beams of light descended, Imperial ships. The Emperor's voice boomed through the comms, his tone both furious and broken. Liara, return, my child. Do not let this man destroy you. She looked up at the sky, tears glowing on her cheeks. Father, I am already destroyed. But this man made me alive again. The Emperor's fleet opened fire. The valley exploded in light. Elias shielded her, pulling her to the ground as the blasts rained around them. His arm burned, his uniform tore, but he didn't let go. In that moment, Liara screamed, not in pain, but power. Her body glowed like a star. Energy surged from her heart, spreading in waves that stopped the falling debris mid-air. The Emperor's ships froze above them, engines dying. The sky itself seemed to tremble. High in orbit, priests and soldiers watched as the eclipse reached its peak. Total darkness. And then from the valley below, a beam of white light shot into the heavens. The Emperor stared in awe. What is this? The High Priest whispered. The curse is breaking. Inside the valley, Liara collapsed into Elias's arms. Her skin, once gray and scarred, shimmered into soft silver, her eyes now clear and bright. She looked human, and yet something more. Elias, she whispered weakly. I can feel it. The bond, it's done. He held her tight. Stay with me. The Emperor's voice echoed again, but softer now. My daughter, what have you become? Liara looked toward the sky. What I was meant to be. As the first light of the eclipse returned, the Imperial fleet slowly descended, surrounding the valley. Elias stood tall, holding Liara close, ready to face whatever came next. But something strange happened. The soldiers lowered their weapons. The Emperor himself stepped out of his ship, walking through the dust. He looked at his daughter, free of the curse, and at the human beside her. He fell to his knees. Forgive me, he whispered. I feared the wrong monster. The stars above shimmered brighter. The curse was gone. But destiny had just begun to turn. The twin suns rose again over the capital of the Galactic Empire. But this sunrise was different. For the first time in centuries, the red clouds above the Star Palace glowed gold instead of gray. The curse that had haunted the royal bloodline for generations was gone, and everyone knew why. The human, Captain Elias Ward, had done what no alien sorcerer, priest, or scientist could ever achieve. He had broken the curse of the Emperor's daughters, with something the Empire had forgotten, compassion, but peace didn't follow. It never did. Inside the Imperial Hall, the High Senate gathered in fury. The vast chamber buzzed with angry voices and flashing lights. Nobles of every species shouted across the marble floor, their words a storm of fear and rage. The human must be executed. One cried, he defied the Emperor's law. Said another, he tainted royal blood. The Emperor sat upon his shining throne, silent, unmoving. His golden armor gleamed, but his eyes were heavy with conflict. His daughters stood behind him, no longer cursed, their forms radiant, their eyes alive. The youngest, Liara, held Elias's hand quietly, refusing to let go. When the shouting grew unbearable, the Emperor finally stood. The hall fell silent at once. Enough, he said, his deep voice echoing across the chamber. You call for blood as if blood will heal your fear. You forget who you are. A senator dared to step forward. With respect, Your Majesty, the human has corrupted your bloodline. The people whisper that your heirs carry alien seed, The Emperor's eyes flared with fury. "Silence!" The senator froze, trembling. The Emperor turned toward Elias, his tone soft but edged with sorrow. "Human, do you understand what your actions have done? You have defied ancient laws. You have forced me to choose between my throne and my daughters." Elias met his gaze calmly. "If kindness breaks your laws, Majesty, maybe it's time they're broken." Gasps filled the hall. The senators whispered furiously. "Blasphemy! Arrogance! He mocks the crown!" But the Emperor did not speak right away. He only studied the human, the man who looked at his cursed children and saw beauty instead of monsters. Finally, he turned toward his daughters. "Tell me the truth. Did this man touch your hearts? Did he claim your souls?" Liara's voice trembled but did not waver. "He didn't claim us, Father. We gave ourselves to him freely, not out of desire, but out of faith." The middle sister Caliph added, "He taught us what no one in this palace ever did, mercy," and the eldest Siren raised her head proudly. "We owe him our lives, our freedom, and our hope." The chamber shook with murmurs. Some senators stood in disgust, others in awe. The Emperor's shoulders slumped. He had faced wars, rebellions, and gods, yet nothing had ever wounded him like this choice. He walked slowly down the steps of his throne and stood before Elias. The human didn't move. The Emperor drew his sword, a blade made of pure starlight. It hummed softly as he raised it. "By the law of the Empire," he said, "you stand accused of trespassing, defiance, and corruption of royal blood. What do you plead?" Elias met his eyes without fear. "Guilty. Of caring." The Emperor's hand trembled. For a long, painful moment, no one breathed. Then, with a deep sigh, he lowered the sword. The blade dimmed and vanished into light. "I cannot kill the man who gave my daughter's life," the Emperor said quietly. "But I cannot protect him either." He turned to the Senate. "Let it be known, the curse is broken. But the bond between this human and my bloodline is forbidden. He shall be exiled from the Empire forever." Liara gasped. "Father, no!" She fell to her knees. "You cannot take him away from us." The Emperor's voice cracked. "It is the only way, child. The Empire will not survive this scandal if he stays." Guards stepped forward to take Elias away. Liara clung to him, sobbing. "You saved me, and now they take you?" Elias gently touched her face. "Don't cry, Liara, you're free now, that's all that matters. But what about you?" she whispered. He smiled sadly. "Humans are used to wandering. Maybe the stars will have mercy." The Emperor looked away, unable to bear the sight. "Take him," he said softly. As the guards led Elias through the hall, every eye followed. The senator's whispers faded into silence. Even those who hated him could not look without shame. Before the doors closed, Elias turned back. "Majesty," he said, "you don't need to thank me. Just be the father they deserve." The Emperor's throat tightened. He nodded once, a silent promise. The doors shut, and the hall fell still. That night, the Emperor stood alone in the throne room, staring at the stars beyond the window. His daughters slept, their dreams finally peaceful. The high priest entered quietly. "It is done, Majesty. The human has been sent beyond the border worlds." The Emperor nodded slowly. "And the Senate? They are quiet now, but they fear what comes next." The Emperor's eyes turned toward the sky. "They should. The prophecy is not complete." The priest bowed his head. "The prophecy?" The Emperor whispered. "It said, when the cursed find love, the Empire will burn and be reborn in their children's light." He looked down at his hand, trembling slightly. "They think the story ends with exile, but it's only beginning." Far away, in a small transport ship drifting through the void, Elias watched the distant light of the twin suns fade behind him. He thought of Liara's eyes, her trembling voice, and the strange warmth that still burned in his chest. He smiled faintly. "Guess I wasn't made for palaces anyway," he murmured. He didn't know that deep inside the palace, the princesses had begun to glow faintly again, soft lights pulsing beneath their skin, new life forming where despair once ruled, and soon, the Empire would learn that no exile could stop destiny. The great hall of the Galactic Senate pulsed with noise and anger. The golden chamber, built to echo the voice of unity, now sounded like a battlefield of words. Senators from 1,000 systems shouted across the polished floor, their voices rising like a storm. "The Emperor has lost his mind." One screamed, "He let the human live!" Another howled, The royal blood is tainted. Our future is doomed. Above them, the emperor sat on his high throne, silent and unmoving. His daughters stood to one side, heads bowed. Their radiant faces glowed softly, as though carrying the light of newborn stars. But their beauty now caused even more fear than their curse ever had. The Senate demanded punishment. "This act defies the sacred laws," roared Lord Varen, a warlike noble from the outer sectors. "The bond between human and royal has weakened our divine heritage. If you won't act, we will." The emperor's golden eyes flashed. "You dare threaten your emperor?" Varen slammed his clawed hand against the table. "No, Majesty. We threaten what your weakness will cause. You've blinded yourself with pity for a creature unfit for our bloodline." The air crackled with tension. Every senator leaned forward. For centuries, the emperor's word had been law. But now, that law was questioned. The high priest stepped forward, robes whispering across the marble. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "the Senate's fear is not without reason. The prophecy has turned true, but not as we expected. The curse is gone, yes, but now a greater change begins." The emperor's gaze hardened. "Speak plainly." The priest bowed slightly. "Your daughters carry life, the children of both human and royal blood." The entire hall froze. For a long moment, only silence existed. Then the chamber erupted in chaos. "Abomination!" one senator cried. "Heretic spawn!" shouted another. "The bloodline must be purged." The emperor's hand clenched around the arm of his throne. His daughters looked terrified. Liara held her stomach protectively, her silver glow pulsing faintly beneath her skin. Caleth and Seren stepped closer to shield her, their eyes filled with fear and love. "Enough," the emperor thundered. His voice echoed like thunder across the chamber, shaking the air itself. "You dare call my blood abomination?" The senators froze but did not back down. Varen sneered. "Then prove it, Majesty. Let the people see your mercy and your shame. Let them judge if the Empire still needs an emperor who bows to humans." The emperor rose from his throne, towering over them all. His presence was like gravity, heavy, ancient, unbreakable. "You forget yourselves," he said coldly. "This empire exists because I brought it from war and ashes. You sit in peace because I bled for it. And you call me weak?" But beneath his fury, his heart ached. He had known this day would come. The moment his daughters' bellies began to glow, he understood. Destiny would demand a price. That night outside the palace, protests spread through the capital. Thousands of aliens marched through the shining streets, their chants echoing through the domes of the city. Pure blood for the throne. No half-breeds in the Empire? Down with the human lover. Fires burned in the lower districts. Statues of the royal family were defaced. Chaos rippled across the Empire like a wave of poison. Inside her chamber, Liara sat on the balcony, tears streaming down her silver cheeks. The stars above seemed farther than ever. Caleth approached quietly. "Sister, they will not stop." Liara shook her head. "They fear what they do not understand." Just like he said. Seren stepped forward, her hand resting gently on Liara's shoulder. "Father cannot fight the Senate forever. They'll turn the people against him." Liara's voice broke. "Then we must go to him." Moments later, the three sisters entered the throne hall. The emperor sat alone, his crown resting on the table beside him. Without the crown, he looked older. Not like a god, but like a tired father. Liara knelt before him. "Father, we cannot stay here. The Senate will destroy you for protecting us." He looked at her for a long moment, sadness deep in his eyes. "I know, but a father protects his children until his last breath." Caleth shook her head. "No, this time we must protect you." The emperor frowned. "How?" Seren spoke softly. "Let us leave. Let the people believe you have banished us forever. Tell them you have ended the human line." Liara's tears glistened. "We will go where they cannot find us, and far from the throne, far from hate. But you must live, to keep hope alive." The emperor turned away, his jaw trembling. "You would leave your home? Your people?" Liara touched his hand gently. "Home is not walls, father. It's the heart that remembers." He looked at her, eyes full of love and grief. Then he nodded slowly. "So be it." He called his personal guards. "Prepare a ship. No one is to know its path." When dawn came, a royal broadcast filled every screen and hologram across the empire. The emperor stood tall, his voice strong. "My people, I bring grave news. The royal curse has ended, but the price was high. The bond with the human has been severed. My daughters have chosen exile to restore balance. The blood of the Empire remains pure. The people cheered. The Senate sighed in relief. But only the Emperor knew the truth. As the golden ship left the palace that morning, only one person watched from the highest tower. The Emperor himself. He whispered into the wind, "Forgive me, my children. Go where the stars will keep you safe." In the ship, Liara held a small pendant, a piece of Elias's broken flight suit, the only thing she had left of him. She pressed it close to her heart and whispered, "We will meet again." I know it. The ship disappeared into the black horizon. Behind them, the Empire celebrated what it thought was peace, unaware that the seeds of a new destiny, part human, part alien, were already growing among the stars, and far beyond. On a lonely freighter drifting through the void, Elias Ward woke from a dream of 3 lights calling his name through endless space. He didn't know why. But deep in his heart, he felt it. They were still alive, and soon he would find them again. Stars drifted like frozen fire around the small transport ship gliding through the void. Inside, Liara, Serene, and Calith sat in silence, watching galaxies shimmer beyond the window. Months had passed since their exile, but time and space felt endless. The Empire had forgotten them, or so it believed. Liara's hands rested over her stomach, a faint glow pulsing beneath her palms. Her unborn child, half human, half royal, radiated warmth like sunlight trapped in her veins. Calith and Serene felt the same light growing within them, a quiet heartbeat that carried both power and peace. "Do you think Father still watches the stars for us?" Calith asked softly. Liara smiled sadly. "Every night, even when he pretends he doesn't." Serene looked out at the empty dark. "And Elias? Do you think he's still out there?" Liara's gaze softened. "I don't think," she whispered. "I know." Far across the galaxy, aboard a battered freighter drifting between dying suns, Captain Elias Ward sat in the pilot seat, staring at a flickering hologram of the royal family, the old news feed showing their banishment. His ship was nearly falling apart, but his spirit wasn't. He had no map, no allies, and no home. But he had a direction, a feeling, faint but certain, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to him. It called to him across the stars. "Liara," he murmured, eyes closed. The ship's console beeped suddenly. A strange signal flashed, and a harmonic pulse, rhythmic and steady. Not mechanical. Biological. Elias straightened. "That's not interference," he said quietly. "That's them." He pulled the lever. The freighter turned toward the signal, engines roaring to life for the first time in weeks. The stars stretched into streaks of light as he jumped to hyperspace. Meanwhile, on the Emperor's homeworld, the Senate's triumph began to crumble. Whispers spread through the cities, crops growing faster than ever, storms calming, sick children healing overnight. The priests examined the phenomena and trembled. "The royal blood still lives," they whispered. The high priest approached the Emperor in secret. "Majesty, the prophecy moves again. You tried to silence destiny, but it has found its own voice." The Emperor stared into the star map hovering before him. "Where?" The priest hesitated. "Beyond the outer veil, far from our reach." The Emperor's face softened. "Then let it be far. They deserve peace, even if I cannot have it." Out in the lonely depths of the outer veil, the 3 sisters built a home among the crystal ruins of an ancient world. The planet was quiet, no cities, no war, no laws. Just blue grass that glowed under twin moons and winds that sang through silver canyons. Here, their children were born, 3 infants, each glowing faintly with silver eyes and warm, human hearts. Liara held her son close, tears falling freely. "He has his father's eyes," she whispered. Calith smiled softly. "And his stubbornness." Serene looked at the newborns and whispered, "They will never know fear." Not in this world. But peace was never meant to last. Months later, a fleet appeared above their new home. Not the Emperor's forces, but rebels loyal to the Senate. They had tracked the sisters, determined to erase all evidence of the human stain. The sky turned red with fire. Liara stood on the cliffs, her child in her arms, eyes glowing bright. "They found us." Calith clenched her fists. "Then let them learn what fear truly is." The rebels landed, shouting orders, plasma cannons glowing. But before they could strike, the ground began to tremble. the air filled with a sound like 1,000 beating hearts. The children, the 3 hybrid infants, cried out in unison. Their voices rose into the wind, and suddenly the sky itself answered. A storm of light tore through the clouds. Energy rippled across the valley. Ships cracked apart midair. Soldiers fell to their knees, blinded by brilliance. From the heavens, a human ship descended, Elias's freighter, burning and beautiful, emerging like a miracle. He stepped out into the storm, his uniform scorched, his face marked with exhaustion but his eyes shining with purpose. When Liara saw him, her breath caught. "Elias," he smiled weakly. "Told you I'd find you." The ground split open with another explosion, and the rebel leader shouted, "Kill the human! End the curse forever!" End the curse forever! But before they could fire, Elias raised his arm. The pendant Liara had kept and a shard of his old flight suit glowed in her hand. The 2 lights met, merging into a blinding pulse that swept through the battlefield. Every weapon melted into light. Every soldier fell still. And when the light faded, the valley was quiet again. Liara ran to Elias, her tears mixing with laughter. "You came back." He held her close, breathing hard. Didn't plan on missing the birth of a new world. Behind them, the 3 infants floated gently into the air, surrounded by a halo of silver light. The sky shimmered, the stars aligning into a pattern never seen before. 3 suns forming above the planet. The Emperor, watching from his palace through his star map, fell to his knees. "It's happening," he whispered. "The prophecy, fulfilled," the High Priest trembled. "A new dawn, Majesty. The age of unity." As the years passed, stories spread across galaxies. Tales of a small planet where humans and aliens lived as one, where love was not forbidden, and where 3 radiant children ruled with wisdom beyond their years. They called it Nova Terra, the New Earth, and at its heart stood the human who once defied an empire, Elias Ward, and the 3 daughters of the Star Emperor, now Queens of Light. The Senate fell. The old empire dissolved. The Emperor himself abdicated, choosing to live quietly, his heart finally at peace knowing his daughters had built what he never could, a world born not from conquest, but from love. In the twilight of his life, he looked to the stars one last time and smiled. "Humans," he whispered. "We feared them, but they were never our doom. They were our beginning." And far away under the silver skies of Nova Terra, Elias stood with Liara and their children, watching the new sunrise of a united galaxy. The prophecy had come true. The curse was broken, and humanity had given birth to the future of the stars.